Hey guys, welcome to the show today. Dave Thomas here from BowHunterPlanet in our outdoor podcast. And with the show today, we have Sarah and Josh Bowmar talking about a lot of different topics today. But I have a lot of questions for you guys, and a lot of my questions are regards to hunting. Of course, you have some amazing adventures you guys have done, but I wanted to give you the floor first, as we kind of talked about in the pre-show here, just to kind of explain like the backstory of the Bowmars. Like, because honestly, I was thinking about it before you guys were coming on. I was like, I don't really know their backstory. Like, who got them into archery? Why did they even get into the business of archery and bow hunting, and what drives you guys for that? So I'll just give it to you guys to tell us the story. I know it's probably gonna be a little bit winded, but let's hear it.
Hey, first of all, Dave, thanks for having us on. This is going to be so fun, and happy to answer all your questions. And our backstory is actually pretty cool. So,
are you going first?
Yeah, I mean, we'll kind of start, and I'll kind of give my story up to when I met Sarah, and then Sarah can kind of run with it. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But Bowmar, my last name, I come from a whole lineage of bow hunters. Like my grandpa wrote a book on bow hunting, big whitetails. He was killing giants back in the 70s and 80s, where you would walk around in Ohio and find one set of deer tracks, and he was killing Boone and Crockett's with a bow and arrow with no sights. And yeah, I mean,
well, your grandma was the first woman in the Ohio Big Buck Club.
Yeah. My grandma was the first woman in the state of Ohio to shoot one over 140, and it was a giant. It was the largest buck ever killed in the state for like 20 years by a female. Very, very huge, typical 170 inches, which is really special. Like it netted, I think, 170 as a typical. So pretty special deer. And so I grew up bow hunting. And my grandpa and dad were real hard on me. You know, I wasn't allowed to kill my first deer with sights. So bow hunting, I had to shoot instinctive. Wow. And so I killed my first deer with a bow, shooting instinctive with no sights. And it was crazy, you know, growing up that way. But I appreciated archery at a very high level. Guns were for sissies. You know, we bow hunted strictly. And my family, we did gun hunt, you know, a little, but not much. We were diehard bow hunters. And so I grew up with great teachers with my dad and my grandpa, and I always loved filming my hunts. And so I was very fortunate to have a pastor who had a TV show, and he filmed like a fishing show, and he had this old camera that he wasn't using, and he gave it to me as kind of like my first camera to like film my stuff with. And so that was really special, and I filmed all my stuff. You can go back to our YouTube, and I started YouTube in 2008 or 9. So very, very long time ago. And I was filming my hunts in high school, and they're so cringy, but they're fun. And what we kind of got my start in popularity was hunting with a homemade longbow, because a lot of people don't know this, but I strictly hunted with a homemade bow for 5 years. I didn't even have a compound. I sold it because I didn't have any money. So I needed the money. And so I built my own bow and I hunted with that. And I shot multiple Pope and Young animals and a bear and some whitetails. And filming those, it was so unique and different because no one really ever did that back then. And so that kind of got my start in popularity, was the stick bow stuff. But then where that stopped was I missed about a 210 to 215 with it. Total target panic. Freak out, buck fever. I mean, all of it came in on me at once, and I just blew the whole thing. I mean, it was so funny. And I learned so much from that buck. I'm very grateful. But he was blind in one eye, had a broken leg that healed crooked. I mean, he was crippled, old, and I still couldn't kill him. It was just as terrible. And I finally got my shot, and whenever I shot, it was so funny with my longbow. I couldn't stop looking at his antlers, and my arrow went right between his antlers.
Hey, at least you hit one, break it off.
Right. So yeah, I ended up finding his shed, and his one antler scored 102. Wow. If that tells you how big this deer was. So yeah, after that, I hung up the longbow and picked up the compound, which would have been about 2013, and then I met Sarah in 2014. And so you can kind of pick up with this, because this is crazy. If a lot of people are watching this don't know this story, this is where it gets wild.
Well, I think too, before we jump out of your story, you also took a lot of media broadcast journalism classes in college, which I think a lot of people like look at our YouTube and they're like, oh, overnight success and all these things. And it's like, no, there's so much work that went into like high school and college and beyond too.
Well, yeah, because I edited all my own content for 8 years. We didn't have editors or teams or anything like that. So I did take a media and broadcast journalism class, and I had to talk like with the dean of our university in order to be able to even get into it because it was a senior level class. And I explained what my dreams were, and they were so cool to be able to let me in there. But I didn't get credit for it is the problem. I didn't get the credit for the class, but I was like, I don't care. I just want to take the class because I was an exercise physiology guy in kinesiology. So I studied all the health and fitness, and Sarah and I are both fitness nutrition specialists, and we are more specialists on the fitness side in terms of income and things like that. And so that's what I studied in school, but I was always a diehard deer hunter, and fisherman. And so it was kind of funny, but yeah, that's cool. But
so Josh and I met at the Arnold in 2014, which is the biggest fitness bodybuilding expo in the world. He broke the golden rule and approached me at the gym while I was working out. And
I've seen the horror videos of those type of things.
Right.
That was me. I couldn't help myself. It was 9:00 at night, and everyone else was at the bars or the clubs or whatever everyone's doing, and I was in the gym training, and so was she. And I was like, "That's a girl I want to talk to, because if she's at the gym and not out at the bars, like this is someone I want to get to know." And so that's why I hit on her. But
you at least waited until I was almost finished with my workout.
Well, I was trying to time a water bottle, but she would never get a drink, so it got awkward.
Yeah.
She's like, you know what, I'm just going to talk to her.
So the Arnold is in Columbus. Josh lived there. I did not, but I was in town for the show. So that's why it was just crazy. Like, we're both at the gym, same time, Saturday night of this huge expo. Ended up just really hitting it off. And so that was Saturday. The show is the show is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so that next day he was like, "Oh, I'll swing by your booth. I'll come see you, whatever." And I'm like, okay, like, is this guy really going to do that? And he actually did, swung by the booth, and ended up knowing the owner of the company that I was working with, which is so funny. He came to our wedding. But
he was a big hunter, and his name was Dave too, which is fun.
A lot of Daves out there.
Yeah, so he's in Pennsylvania. But so Josh swung by the booth and, was like, let's just go grab food. The show's pretty dead on Sunday. So we went to, our first date was the food court at the convention center, downtown Columbus.
This is where it gets really crazy.
Yeah. And so obviously the day before we hadn't talked about like dietary preferences, because who would? But that day when we were ordering, Josh was like, "Why are you only ordering a vegan meal? Like, why are you not eating meat?" And I was like, "I don't eat meat. I haven't eaten meat for 2 years." And immediately he was like, "This is not."
I'm like, "So you're a vegan?" I'm like, "You're a vegan. I'm a diehard hunter. I kill animals and eat them." And I told her right there on our first date, "I'm sorry, this just isn't going to work out." I was like, "You're beautiful, but listen, this is what I do." And she dropped that bomb on me. And I was like, this is not working. But she said, "Hey, I'm not against hunting. I'm just against the meat packing industry and all of that." And so there was where I was like, okay, there's a little sliver of hope, but I'm not holding crossing my fingers for this one.
So I was fresh out of college and just still really care about animal welfare, which we both do. And I think a lot of people don't understand that hunters actually really do love animals. And so it's cool that we haven't purchased meat from the store since pretty much meeting. And so Josh took a very calm and like educational approach to archery and conservation. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, this guy's really hot. I did archery once in 5th grade camp. Like, oh, I would totally shoot something, And so that was the first weekend of March. And by April 1st, I quit my job in Toledo, moved down to Columbus, and started just entrepreneurship, the fitness side, from day one, both of us. And it was funny because turkey season was coming up. And so we're like, well, let's go get a bow and see if you can actually draw this thing back, if you can aim, how you do with it. So we ended up going to our favorite pro shop in Columbus, Fisherman's Warehouse, and they taught me to shoot. That is the number one thing that I can recommend to anyone who's wanting to get their wife or girlfriend or partner into archery or hunting.
You skipped over a very important part though that I want to cover. So turkey season is in April, and she's wanting to try to hunt turkeys, and I'm like, you have no chance of learning how to shoot a bow in 2 weeks and expect to shoot one. I'm like, so I'm going to get you my turkey gun, and we're going to see if you can shoot. So it's a 12 gauge with 3.5 turkey loads.
I've never shot a gun before.
And she's never shot a gun. And I first one, 12 gauge, 3.5 turkey loads. we don't have time for the pleasantries. We got turkey season coming. So I give her the gun, you know, and I'm going to she's going to flinch so bad. So I acted like I loaded it, you know, to put it in there to see how bad she flinched. And so it was just a blank. And so I'm like, all right, so put the bead on, put your head on the barrel until you can't see any of the barrel, and the only thing you see is the bead. I said, put the bead then on the turkey's head. It was a target, and pull the trigger. So I'm watching, you know, I'm like, oh, she's going to go real bad. She literally is a serial killer because she went like this, click, and didn't even blink. I kid you not. She didn't even blink. She's like, why didn't it go off? I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. So then I loaded it, you know, and she's like 110 pounds. Yeah. And boom, and it blasts. And she's like, oh my God, this is horrible. I'm like, you missed.
No kidding.
I'm like, try again. And she shoots it again. She's like,
rips my shoulder.
Forget this gun thing. We're going to get in a bow. And I'm like, okay. I was like, so you've got a lot to learn in a very short period of time.
Yeah. So we were living in an apartment at the time and had no access to like a target or a course or anything. And so we were shooting 10, 11 o'clock at night in our parking lot at the apartment complex. And luckily the security guy was like, okay, like I'm a hunter too, I get it. But like, these are like weapons. You guys are in like a very nice part of Columbus. Like, just make sure that no one sees you.
We were in Dublin, Ohio. Like, so it was not a place you shoot bow and arrows in parking lots. But we didn't have any choice, you know, that's what we had. And,
but so, no one told me how difficult archery hunting a turkey would be. And I'm grateful for that because I feel like I'd have gotten in my own head. And we went down to Kentucky and had no luck. And then Ohio State.
Knocking doors, no permission, just, and this is a great tip for anyone watching this. If you want to just get permission, tell them you're only going to be there for a day. Yeah. And like, I'm only going to hunt for today, maybe tomorrow. Would you mind if I tried to get a turkey? And we got a lot of permission that way. I bet you we were about 50%, which is really high if you've ever knocked doors. It's normally 100% no's, and someone forgets, and I mean, you get one person that maybe lets you go, but we were 50%. Like, listen, we're only going to be here till tomorrow. Would you mind if we tried? And we'll speed up the story because I don't want to bore everybody with this. But the short end of this is she started shooting her bow, but she got trained by guys that weren't me, and so she was like learning really well, really fast, and she's hitting the bullseye over and over again. I'm like, she's got a chance here. And I'm like, listen, even back then, this is 2014. I'm like, I only shoot turkeys in the head. So we're only shooting them in the head. She didn't know any better. So we go to the spot. Sure enough, I call in this whole group of toms and they're thumping the decoy, you know, and the one's standing breeding the decoy and its head's doing this. And I'm like, all right, shoot him in the head, you know, and then his head's down and I start calling. He sticks his head up and I kid you not, she shoots this thing straight in the head. First time. Just domes it. Boom! And it starts flopping around. I'm like, and she's a vegan. Still.
I still haven't eaten meat.
She still hadn't eaten meat. She just shoots his turkey in the head. Yeah. And I'm like, oh wow, right then and there, I'm like, I'm gonna marry this girl. This is insane. Even from the very first time she ever pulled the trigger on the gun and didn't blink to the time that's ice in her veins when it comes to shooting. And I was so impressed. And so the first time she ate meat in years was her own turkey. Yeah. Which was
so Sarah, did you grow up in the city then or in the country too?
Oh yeah, I grew up in Southern California, like the ocean, the most like non-hunting. Now my grandpa farmed, raised bison, that kind of thing, but no one in my family hunts. Like I was not exposed to it at all. So it's really cool now and I think this is something that like we really pride ourselves on, is how we can explain hunting to people, because it's not something that I've been doing my whole life. It's not a my way or the highway kind of thing. I can take it from, guys, I was a literal vegan and now I am a bow hunter and we've traveled all over the world. So it's really cool to be able to have that side of the viewership and just really the ignorance to it, because it's not taught. It's not something that many people, talk about. It's not on TV hardly unless you're actively looking for it. So social media has been really cool just to have that interaction with people on sharing our story.
Yeah. And really to fast track to kind of where we are, I would say now, 2014, Sarah and I were filming each other. We filmed our hunts. We started gaining more and more popularity with social media, and our YouTube videos started catching more traction. And then our social media, we quit doing Facebook, we quit doing everything. We put all of our effort into Instagram. Yeah. And so this was back when Facebook was still hot. It was kind of like TikTok is compared to Instagram now. We abandoned Facebook and went all in, and we were really the only people. So we grew really fast with our style of content. So we got to 100,000 followers pretty fast, and we started getting fans, which was really cool. And then we just put more and more effort into our stuff, and it just took a really, really long time. But in 2016, we made a very unique decision for people in our space, is we abandoned all sponsorships. And so we were real sponsor heavy, and it just bothered me so much because whenever I would make a video and we're filming this hunt, I'm like, oh man, I got to make sure I got Hoyt in here. I got to make sure I got Nomad. I got to make sure I got this broadhead and this company. And next thing you know, I'm editing it, and all of a sudden the hunt becomes about what I'm using, not what I'm hunting. And that was the moment I drew the line. I said, we're not doing this, because I want this not to be about what I'm using. I want it to be about the animal and its story and its journey and the trials and tribulations that we're going through in order to harvest this animal. Because bow hunting is hard. And, you watch our videos and it makes it feel easy, and you watch TV shows, but it makes it feel easy because you're seeing all this time condensed down into this edit when it's really, really hard. And I was like, I don't want to dilute this down to just this big sponsorship heavy episodes. And so in 2016, and this was a lot of money for us, but we were making probably close to 80 grand a year with all of our sponsors, and we cut all of them. And we said, we're just going to shoot what we want, wear what we want, and do whatever we want to be sponsor free.
Well, I think that was too, we were getting ready for an Alaska hunt for caribou, and who we were with at the time didn't have the gear we needed. And it's like, bow hunting is hard enough. We don't want to limit ourselves to the equipment that's available through this one sponsor when we really need this to have a successful hunt. So yeah, it's been sponsor free ever since.
Yeah. So, I mean, for almost 10 years, and 8 years now, we've been sponsor free. We only promote our own products and products that we're using legitimately. And so it's kind of interesting, but it's definitely, I'm not saying if people have sponsors, that's bad by any means. You can only work with companies that you truly believe in. And that's totally great too. But for us, we just decided to cut all ties with it.